How many of the knives sitting in your drawer right now did you make worse the last time you tried to clean one up? Not lost, not thrown away, worse. You picked up a piece your father carried, you saw a little rust, and you reached for whatever was under the sink. I know that reach. I made that reach for years. My name is Walt, I am 71 years old, and I have had somewhere near 9,000 blades pass across my bench. 34 years as a tool and die maker in Ohio, and the rest of my life cleaning steel that other men gave up on. Today I am going to hand you 8 things, 8 methods to bring an old rusty knife back without destroying it. Some cost pennies. One of them is the reason most collection knives get saved instead of scrapped, and almost nobody talks about it. Here is the part that will bother you. The rust is not your enemy, the sandpaper is. The rust can be handled gently. The sandpaper is what takes a knife that was worth $200 and turns it into a shiny letter opener worth nothing. You have seen the videos. Everybody has. A silent shop, an orange lump of a knife. 20 minutes later, it shines like a car bumper, and not one word of explanation the whole time. What those quiet videos never tell you is that a good share of those restorations killed the piece. They sanded the maker's stamp clean off the tang. They ran a fine edge across a bench grinder and cooked the temper right out of it. They buffed a factory satin finish up to a mirror the maker never put there. Beautiful silence. Value gone. I am not naming anyone. I am telling you the method is wrong. I earned the right to say that the hard way. For my first 11 years, I used a bench grinder on carbon steel, 80 grit paper, a drill with a wire wheel spinning at full speed, vinegar in a jar overnight every night because I thought more time meant more clean, motor oil to finish because that is what my hands smelled like anyway. I think about the knives I ruined in those years more than the ones I saved. My grandfather ran a shop and he told me something when I was 9 that I have repeated for over 60 years. You can always take more steel off tomorrow. You can never put it back. Every method I am about to give you comes out of that one sentence. So before we start, do something for me in the comments. If you have a knife you inherited and have been afraid to touch, tell me what it is and what is stamped on the tang. The name, the pattern number, the little letters. I read them and I can usually tell you what you are holding. And keep one thing in your head the whole way through. The 8th method is the cheapest thing on this entire list and the simplest. It is also the one that has saved more blades than everything else combined. Most people never hear about it because there is no money in telling you. We get there at the end. We start easy. Method 1 is the wash nobody bothers with, and it is the first thing you should ever do to a dirty knife. Warm water, a drop of dish soap, and a toothbrush. That is it. Before you decide a knife is rusted, you have to find out how much of that brown is actual rust and how much is just grime, dried oil, and pocket lint packed into the joint. Half the time what looks like rust is filth sitting on top of good steel. You scrub, you dry it dead dry with a towel, and now you can actually see what you are dealing with. The cost of skipping this step is that you start grinding on dirt and take metal off a knife that only needed a bath. Dish soap, 99 cents, and it lasts a year. A conservator at a museum does the exact same thing before anything else touches the object. So, do you. Method 2 is oil and time, and this is where you learn patience or you learn regret. Take that knife once it is clean and dry and lay it down in a shallow dish of mineral oil. Plain mineral oil, the kind sold as a laxative at any drugstore, $3 a bottle. Let it sit a day, 2 days. The oil creeps into the pits under the rust and lifts it loose. Then you take fine steel wool, the grade marked double-aught or triple-aught, which feels like a cotton ball with a whisper of grit in it, and you rub with the oil along the length of the blade, never across. Light pressure. The oil carries the loosened rust away and protects the steel you keep. This will not shine anything up. It is not supposed to. It stops the rust and keeps the character. On a carbon steel blade, the kind that takes a natural gray-brown patina over the years, this is often the only thing you should ever do. Let me stop here for a second. What I just walked you through, the oil, the grade of steel wool, the direction of the stroke, is one page of chapter 4. There are 11 more chapters. I put all of it into a book called The Restorer's Bench. It runs 158 pages, 12 chapters, and it is organized by the decision in front of you, not by some list of tools. Inside it, there are the bench cards you can prop up next to the sink, a safety card, and an index arranged by symptom. So when you are holding a knife, you look up what you see, and it tells you where to turn. The point of it is simple. That knife in your drawer, tonight, and you finally knowing what it is and where to stop. The link is in the description, and the QR code is on your screen. This is the night you stop being afraid of that drawer. Method 3 is the one that separates the men who understand rust from the men who just hate it. It is chemical conversion, and you need to understand what rust actually is before you touch it. Red rust is iron oxide with water bound into it. It is porous, it is loose, and it is alive. It keeps eating the steel underneath as long as it sits there. Black patina is a different oxide, magnetite, and it is stable and tight and it protects the metal beneath it. Here's the whole game. The goal of a smart restoration is very often to turn the red into black, not to sand down to bare shiny metal. You can buy a rust converter, or you can use tannic acid, which is what strong black tea is full of. You brew tea triple strength, let it cool, and lay the blade in it. The tannic acid reacts with the red rust and converts it toward a stable black-blue iron tannate. Costs you a tea bag. The National Park Service, in their Conservogram series on caring for metal objects, treats stabilization exactly this way, converting active corrosion rather than blasting metal off. You are not removing the knife's history. You are stopping it from getting worse. Method 4 is citric acid, and this is where you handle a knife that is genuinely crusted over. Citric acid powder sold for canning, 90 cents a scoop. You dissolve a couple of tablespoons in warm water, enough to cover the blade. Now this is an acid, so you do it in a ventilated spot, you wear gloves, and you keep an eye on the clock. This is not vinegar. I need you to hear that. Vinegar is acetic acid at 5%, and if you leave a blade in vinegar overnight, the way I did for years, it eats the rust, and then it keeps right on going into the healthy steel and leaves the whole surface pitted gray. Citric acid works faster and cleaner, and you pull the blade in 15 to 30 minutes, not overnight. You watch it. When the rust turns to a black sludge you can wipe off, you are done. Rinse it, dry it hard, and oil it the same hour, because bare strip steel will flash a new coat of orange in an afternoon if you leave it wet. Method 5 is the abrasive step, and this is the one you must do slowest of all, because this is where the damage lives. If you have any rust left after the chemistry, you go to sandpaper, but you go by hand and you go high. You do not start at 80 grit. You do not own a grit that low anymore, as far as I am concerned. You start around 400 and you back it with a flat block, and you work with the length of the blade. 1200 grit, if you go that far, feels like a business card under your thumb, almost smooth. And here is the rule that guards the whole knife. You never ever let a power tool near a thin edge. A wire wheel on a drill, a bench grinder, a buffing wheel, they build heat faster than you can feel it. When steel turns straw colored, you are around 400 degrees, hot enough that a drop of water skates across it instead of boiling. And the temper, which is the low temperature bake that gives the edge its toughness, is already gone. When it goes blue, it is worse, and it does not come back. I ruined a beautiful old carbon skinner that way in about 4 seconds. One pass. I still have it in a drawer to remind me. I'll be straight with you. 20 minutes of video is a sample. It is the shop window. What is actually written down runs a lot deeper. The Restorer's Bench is those 12 chapters, each one built around a decision you have to make, and it is set in large type because I am 71 and I know who I am talking to. The whole thing is built around a bench that costs under $40 to put together and not one power tool in it. Here's the part I am proudest of. Every technique in the book carries a line I call Check Me with a published dated source next to it, the National Park Service, the Canadian Conservation Institute, the ASM Metals Handbook, so you never have to take my word alone. It comes with 60 days to sit with it, and if it is not what I said it was, that is on me, not you. If you have been watching this thinking about a knife that outlived the man who carried it, that is exactly who I wrote it for. The link sits down in the description and the code on your screen takes you to the same place. That knife deserves better than a guess. Method 6 is the handle, and this is where good men wreck good knives out of pure kindness. You cannot treat every handle the same. Bone, stag, and antler do not get wet and they do not get warm. They crack. You clean those with a rag and a little mineral oil, nothing else ever. Wood the same, oil only, but there is one handle material that will fool you, and it is the reason for half the mysterious rust in old collections. Celluloid. A lot of knives made before 1950 had celluloid handles, and celluloid breaks down with age. As it degrades, it gives off nitrous fumes that rust the blade it is attached to, and the blades of every other knife stored in the same box. If you have an old knife rusting for no reason it can see, smell the handle. If it smells sharp and sour like camphor, that is the culprit, and that knife needs to be stored alone, away from the rest, before it takes them down with it. Method 7 is electrolysis, and this is the hidden method for the valuable pieces, the one collectors quietly rely on. Instead of scraping rust off, which takes good metal with it, electrolysis reduces the rust back down using a low electrical current. It pulls the oxygen out of the rust and leaves the base metal alone. You use a plastic tub, a battery charger set low, a tablespoon of washing soda, which is sodium carbonate, in the water, and a piece of scrap steel as your other terminal. And here is the safety line you do not skip. Your scrap piece must be plain mild steel, never stainless. Stainless in an electrolysis bath releases hexavalent chromium into the water, and that is toxic, full stop. Plain steel, low amps, ventilated room. It works slowly, it does not remove 1/1000th of an inch of the original surface, and that is exactly why the museums use it. The Canadian Conservation Institute writes it up in in their notes on metal care for precisely that reason. And now the eighth one, the one I promised you at the start. The cheapest thing on this list, the simplest, and the one that has saved more knives than every acid and current and abrasive combined. It is doing nothing, on purpose, and knowing when to stop. Before you touch a knife, you find the tang stamp, the maker's mark where the blade disappears into the handle. That stamp is the whole value. The maker, the pattern number, the date code all live in that one little spot the size of a grain of rice. A case 20 from before 1965, back when they still stamped carbon steel instead of the true sharp stainless that came later, is worth real money with that stamp intact and almost nothing without it. One pass of sandpaper over it and it is gone forever. So the eighth method is this. You look, you identify, and on a lot of knives you decide the right restoration is to stabilize the rust, oil it, and leave it honest. That decision costs $0, and it is the most valuable thing I know. It took me 11 years to learn it. A knife left a little rough, but original beats a knife polished into a stranger every single time. So now it is your turn again. If there is a tool or a trick I left off this list, put it down below and tell me where you learned it. Next week I am taking apart the biggest lie in this whole hobby, in a video I am calling Why Your Grandfather's Knife Rusted in a Sealed Box and Celluloid is Only Half of It. Remember the quiet video, the orange lump going to a mirror in 20 silent minutes. Now you know what got destroyed to make that shine. Rust can be stopped without stripping the steel. Stopping is not the same as scrubbing, and stopping is almost always the right answer. Warm water and soap, $1. Mineral oil and steel wool, $3. Strong tea to convert the rust, pennies. Citric acid, 90 cents. Hand sandpaper, a couple of dollars. Reading the handle before you wet it, free. Washing soda for the electrolysis bath, $1. And knowing when to stop, free and worth more than all the rest. Call it $8, all in. $8 against a $200 knife, and every one of these methods keeps the stamp, keeps the temper, keeps the man who carried it. The mirror finish and the $150 kit keep nothing but your money moving in the wrong direction.